All right, good morning. Let's get started. How's everybody this morning? Good. You all fired up? Well, I appreciate you coming out and spending time with us today. So before we get started, quick show of hands. How many people here have either taken a course on Udemy or taught a course on Udemy? Oh, fantastic. All right, it's great to see. All right, so let's begin. This is actually, before we begin, these are actually not my slides, so we're going to pause. I was going to say, like, wow, was that like a different commercial? Was I supposed to talk about the Surface tablet here instead? By the way, not an iPad. I was corrected earlier, so let's try that one again. But anyway, anyone taking some really interesting Udemy courses? Go ahead, shout it out. What have we taken?
Cooper Design.
Cooper Design. How about the Andre Agassi tennis course? Anybody? Web development. There we go. Oh, you teach your course. All right. Maybe we'll hear about that later. I'm going to do the Socratic method and call on you. Okay, I'm just kidding. All right, here we go. Let's try that again. Let's start with our mission. And our mission is to improve lives through learning. We do this by providing a platform where any expert, instructor, author, blogger, or speaker can teach an online course within our marketplace. And today, that marketplace is powered by, here we go. You want to do a manual forward for me? Oop, no, we're going to go backwards. All right, here we go. So today, that marketplace is powered by 16 million students who are learning from 40,000 online courses from 20,000 different instructors, and these courses are taught in 80 different languages. So what we're talking about here is truly a global teaching and learning marketplace. So why is it that we do what we do? Well, for starters, I think we all acknowledge that the world around us is changing faster than ever before. So the number of skills that we all need to be successful throughout the rest of our lives is increasing. At the same time, when we think about our younger generation of workers, they're actually staying in jobs for shorter tenures, and as a result, we believe that continuous lifelong learning is going to be even more important as time goes on. Now, here's somewhat of a frightening statistic. 65% of grade school kids will have jobs that don't even yet exist. So what we're talking about is a future that is a little bit unknown. It's changing very quickly. And at the same time, I think this all probably looks a little bit all too familiar to some of you, certainly for me it was. Traditional education is not quite keeping up to where the rest of the world is in terms of pace of change. Okay, so in terms of our market opportunity, broadly speaking, we think about our market opportunity simply by breaking it down by age. So you've got K-12, traditional higher education, and then this new bucket that we call lifelong learning. And only 5-10 years ago, if you talk about lifelong learning and continuous learning, a lot of people really wouldn't understand what that is. So we really play in that last segment, and that's that notion of regardless of whether or not you're lucky enough to have a degree or diploma, you have to continue to learn through the rest of your life to be successful. Okay, so that's very much where we focus on. All right, so let's dive into the marketplace and how it works today. All right, so the first thing is any topic can be taught or learned. It can be done in any different language as well. And so long as you have an internet connection, whether that's through desktop or mobile, you can access Udemy. So the model itself and the economic engine is really simple. So the way that works is our instructors, they own the IP. They use our free tools that we offer to them to create online courses. Once they create these courses, they're put in the marketplace, and any student that buys them from all over the world, they can do that. Once that purchase is made, we take a percentage and a fee of that. So we don't make any money unless our instructors do. So very simple, very straightforward. Not too dissimilar from other platforms or marketplaces, whether that be an eBay or an Airbnb or Etsy, and so on and so forth. All right. In terms of the content and instruction that you'll find on the marketplace, what you'll see is about 70% of what we do is what we call professional skills development, and 30% is what we would call more personal enrichment or personal development and casual interests. So on the professional side, this can be technology, it can be design, it can be business, it can be soft skills, hard skills, it can be anything from Microsoft Excel to negotiations. On the personal development side, it can be health and wellness, it can be journalism with Dan Rather, it can be learning tennis with Andre Agassi. So there's a broad spectrum, broad array of teaching and learning that happens within the marketplace. The experience itself, if you haven't had an opportunity to take a course, please do so or download our app. You can check it out right now. So our courses are delivered primarily via video, though we support multiple formats. There are also quizzes, practice tests, assignments, and interactive discussions between instructors and students, and we support multiple formats beyond just video, so whether it's PDF, PowerPoint, so on and so forth. So, but everything is on demand, so that's an important thing to note. It is not a cohort-based model. It is literally when you have time. We recognize that in today's day and age where people are busy and they're on the go, it is important for them to be able to access whatever media content or instruction that they're interested in at the right time. So that's how the current experience is. All right, so let's take a closer look at our student base. Who are our students? So by and large, our students are a younger adult demographic. So they are adults, they're a little bit on the younger side, and they are from all over the world. So 2/3 of our students originate from outside the US, okay? 2/3 outside the US. Actually, about half of our instructors originate from outside the US. So again, what we see is that there's really truly a widespread adoption, but also passion for education all over the world. So it's not just a US-centric phenomenon. Let me give you two quick examples here of some of our students. So Chin on the left, she had just finished her formal education. She realized after graduation that she didn't quite have the full skill set that she needed to be successful in her her upcoming professional career. So she went and augmented her education on Udemy by taking some of the courses on Udemy. And the person on the right, Joe, he had actually switched careers. He went on to become an entrepreneur, and he needed to also develop a new skill set. So he learned all new, in this particular case, technology-related skills on Udemy. So different purposes, different career changes, but both coming to Udemy. So let's flip sides and talk about some of our instructors and the experts that are teaching on Udemy. So the first thing is, why do instructors typically teach on Udemy? And it really boils down to 3 different reasons. The first one is around reach, the opportunity to really teach students all over the world. So beyond what they're typically capable of in a local setting. So that's one. Number 2 is income, the ability to earn an income. And number 3 is certainly the passion and the ability to share their knowledge and change people's lives all over the world again. In terms of some of the quick stats here, it typically takes 3 to 4 weeks to create the course. Obviously, there's ongoing support above and beyond that. There are some instructors on the high end who have earned quite a bit and who have sold quite a bit. I think you see here the top 10 Udemy instructors through all time have had gross course sales of over nearly $50 million, but on average, it's closer to about $8,000. Okay, 3 quick examples here. So we've got Tony on the left. So Tony's teaching about entrepreneurship. Sadie's teaching about health and wellness. And Rob is teaching about all sorts of technology-related topics. I believe Rob has the most courses amongst everybody. He's taught dozens and dozens of courses at this time, many of which have now been translated into other languages as well. So all of this results in a highly scalable content creation engine. So by that, what I mean is our marketplace is able to generate a huge amount of selection across multiple different topics, taught in many different languages, and also many different teaching styles, which is really important. And as a result of all this, what we find is that we have experienced a huge growth in terms of the number of courses within the marketplace, so vastly growing selection. And when you pair this up with the number of students that we've also seen come into the marketplace, the intersection of both of these is where the economic magic happens. Okay, one quick note in terms of where do our students typically come from. This is a common question, so I figured I'd throw this in there. So most of our students come through organic channels. It's not a heavily paid acquisition or paid marketing type of operation. So when I say organic, it's either direct, word of mouth, referral. It can be search engine optimization, or it can be instructors themselves. So by and large, that's how people hear about Udemy. And lastly, in terms of different growth vectors, as we think about our business going forward and how do we grow the opportunity, first is around growing share of wallet. So we're all constantly thinking about new products, new offerings that we can provide to our students, understanding that our current offering is just, it's one particular offer, but there are other people who will want to learn differently perhaps, and there could be different products, different packages. So that's number one. Number two is around continuing to strengthen and make the core marketplace more efficient. And by that, I mean constantly making sure that we have the right selection. We're increasing the quality of the courses that come onto the marketplace, and importantly, making sure that students are able to get into the right course. Now, when you have this huge amount of supply of content and instruction within the marketplace, it becomes increasingly difficult to make sure that students are able to find and land into the right course for them. So more often than not, what we find is that it's not necessarily a bad course, it could just be the wrong course for that particular student. So there's a lot of effort that we put into search and discovery to make sure that students get into that right course. So that's in the middle bucket in terms of strengthening our core marketplace. And lastly, great opportunity in terms of expanding our reach, both in terms of international as well as on the enterprise side. So today, I haven't spent much time talking about it, but we do have an offering called Udemy for Business, where there are small, medium businesses, mid-market businesses, as well as enterprise customers use us for internal corporate training. So that's on the enterprise side, and certainly on the international side, as I mentioned before, 2/3 of our students originate from outside the US. About half of the revenue already comes from outside the US as well, and that is probably the fastest growing piece of our business today. Okay, so I'm going to end there and open up for questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a couple questions. You had mentioned that you were starting to move into enterprise. Are you able to share more on the traction that you're seeing there and the kind of percentage of revenue, or roughly?
Sure.
And the second question is, given that you have such high production volume of courses, and you can see that hockey stick in terms of the volume, how do you ensure that, like, when courses become out of date, that those get flagged, and so that there's not a long period of search time for a learner to find what they're looking for?
Right. No, sure. Happy to answer both those questions. So the first question, with regards to enterprise traction, that's actually, I should also mention, alongside international, are the fastest piece of the fastest growing piece of our business. So those two segments are by far growing the most quickly, but at the same time, they're considerably smaller. So on the enterprise side, it's certainly not the majority of the business, but we are signing on to some really great customers like PayPal, Booking.com. They're, I think, 3 of the 5 largest U.S. financial institutions are customers now, and they range from deployments of a couple thousand people upwards of 100,000 employees. So huge opportunity there. I mean, raise your hand here if you've ever taken some internal corporate training and had a bad experience. Yeah, okay. So we've all gone there, and what we find is that our students, working adult professionals by and large, within the marketplace as a consumer, have raised their hand and said, I'm going to take out my credit card from my wallet and pay for it myself because this is something that's important to me. So when we see all that data, and we go back to the chief learning officers or heads of HR at different organizations and different enterprises and say, hey, did you realize you had this many employees doing this on their own, paying it on their own? It's a really easy conversation to say, let's standardize and let's bring this in-house in sort of a more of a cohesive fashion. So that's part one. In terms of the search and discovery and how do we curate, so that's by and large done algorithmically. So this is a really important point. So obviously, you cannot accredit content in this type of environment in the same way that you could before. With the topics changing so quickly, with topics going and instruction going out of date pretty quickly, what we do is we, by and large, rely on student feedback, ratings, and reviews to curate the site. So as students give feedback in terms of their experience with the courses, the ones that are rated highly float to the top, and the ones that rated less so float to the bottom. And it kind of goes back to that old joke, if you've ever heard, what's the most deserted place on the planet? It's the 3rd page of the Google search results. So we try to use technology to guide us in terms of which courses should be shown to whom, alongside a lot of other data science in terms of how we match things together. Yes?
You mentioned the Andre Agassi tennis course, and I actually was looking up here. There's like 2 or 3 surf courses as well. Question for you on the user experience for teaching activities that are very much in the physical world.
Sure.
What is that user experience like, or what have your team found that's maybe different, or how people use it?
Yeah, I mean, so the formats are all the same. So we use all the same platforms. I mean, Andre Agassi doesn't get a different set of tools. I think I think only one particular vertical are there specialized tools that we provide, and that's in the technology vertical. So in the technology vertical, as an example, our instructors have access to be able to create interactive coding exercises. But otherwise, everything is uniform across the different topics. And obviously, things, there are people who are teaching piano that have been incredibly successful, and you'd think, oh, is that easy to do, hard to do over more of a video-based interface? But what we've found time and time again is that the highest variability with regards to success, or I should say the driver of success for an instructor, really happens to be with their teaching. So in terms of, we've experimented with all sorts of like, hey, if we provided these tools for the instructors, we improve the student experience by providing these bells and whistles. They don't move the needle nearly as much as the quality of the instruction itself. So, and that's a little bit hard to break down. It's like if somebody's really good at explaining concepts and breaking them down into simple terms and communicating in ways that people can absorb, it's hard to beat that. Yeah. Yes? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
First, I just want to say thank you. I've learned so much on your
you.
platform over the last couple of years, from Kindle publishing to negotiating my rates and things, so thank you. My question is, it's quite obvious as a teacher how you can make money on the percentage rates that you offer when people submit their classes to you. When you go to a B2B model, how are you going to model the pricing with the teachers?
Sure.
I think I looked at your website. I think it's $20 per user per month, I think.
Yes.
And when you've got as many thousands of courses as you've got, I bet that was a challenge, and I just wondered how you're going to do that.
Sure. So the quick answer is from a buyer or customer standpoint in the B2B example, enterprises buy differently than, say, consumers. So consumers, everything is a la carte on a transaction basis. You're buying a course and you get lifetime access to a particular course. On the enterprise side, it's a little bit different. They want to buy in subscriptions. They want to buy where they can budget and have an all-you-can-eat access. So on the enterprise side, what we do is we offer about roughly 2,000 courses and all-you-can-eat access, and we curate the marketplace for them. We find the best courses within that we think would be most applicable for internal corporate training. And then in terms of how that interacts with our instructors, for our instructors, what we do is we share out the revenue based on usage. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. As you think about some players that are focused on offering career progressions to people looking for vocations or career changers, nano degrees, micromasters, et cetera, how do you think about that in terms of your growth into the future?
Sure. So it's important to differentiate when we think about our users, our consumers, and our students. They come to us probably for a different reason. And we've done a lot of user research. We've looked at all sorts of different personas, understand their attitudes and their situational context. And what we find is that our students come to us because they have a specific skill and need that they're trying to learn. They're not necessarily looking to get a stamp, a signal, or a certificate, but they actually have a specific need for that skill development. Now, beyond that, we also think about not only sort of that first instance of why do they come to Udemy, but also why do they stay with us? Because it's really important that it's not just a single engagement or a single purchase, that we have a lifelong relationship with them. Obviously, I mean, we work in lifelong learning, so we know that they have this need to come back year over year over year, and we do see that. It's extraordinarily consistent when we look at our student cohorts. The ones that were 5, 6 years ago, they behave pretty much the same as the ones 1 or 2 years ago as we get more data and we can measure out how often they come back and they repeat purchase. And what we find is that while you may come in with a specific need for something that you want to learn, you stay because you also want to learn these other things. So there's a need and there's a want. And these wants are like, oh, I actually want to learn this and I want to learn that. And I'm sure most of the folks here are lifelong learners in your own right, where you just love to learn. And you're always thinking about, whether it's reading a book, learning a new skill. I would suspect that if you have an opportunity to spend some time on our site, you're going to want to learn other things beyond what you specifically came there to begin with. Okay, maybe one more question?
Based on that question, how do you measure skills attainment? So you talked about measuring the actual completion rate, but how do you actually track and measure the skills attainment?
Yeah, so we don't actually measure the completion rate. That's not one of our core metrics because what we find is that the use case for our students varies widely. So it could be somebody like, oh my gosh, I lost my job, and then all of a sudden I've got to get a new job, so there's these specific skills I need to attain. Or it could be, I want to get promoted, so I'm in a different state of mind in terms of wanting to improve my career. Or it could be personal development. So I'll give you one quick example. Let's say my boss comes to me and says, I need you to put together this presentation in the next 3 weeks, and it has to have pivot tables and some other components to the presentation. I don't know how to do that. I'll find an Excel course. It may be 60 different lectures long. In lectures 23 through 48, those are the ones that I really need. So having me sit through the first part of the lectures where I already know the material doesn't really help me, and doesn't help us in terms of gauging your success. So what we really do is we focus on how many people come back and interact and purchase with us over a long period of time. And that's what I was mentioning earlier around the cohorts. So we measure that longitudinally over extended periods of time, making sure that they continue to be productive and engaged with us.